It all started with something as simple as a mailbox. A single wooden post at the edge of my driveway, standing like it had for years, quietly doing its job. But in the world of HOA Karens, nothing is ever that simple. One morning, I walked outside to find the mailbox leaning at a strange angle. At first, I thought it might have been a careless delivery driver or maybe even a storm. But when I looked closer, I saw tire tracks in the grass that cut across my yard, leading straight to the wreckage. I shrugged it off, replaced the post, and went about my day. But it wasn't long before it happened again. And then again. Each time, the mailbox was struck down in almost the exact same way. The angle of the car, the fresh tread marks in the date, even the timing of it all. That's when I realized this wasn't an accident. Someone was doing it on purpose. It didn't take long to figure out who. Karen, the self-appointed enforcer of our HOA, had been giving me grief ever since I moved in. She had complained about the color of my shutters, the length of my grass, even the number of cars in my driveway when family visited. Nothing made her happy. But the real issue started when I refused to attend her so-called mandatory HOA meetings. I didn't care about her endless rules, and I sure wasn't going to spend my weekend sitting in her living room while she played dictator. From that point on, I had a target on my back. The fourth time my mailbox was destroyed, I caught her red-handed. I was in the garage when I heard the crunch of tires against wood. By the time I ran to the curb, Karen's luxury SUV was pulling away, the splintered remains of my mailbox lying flat on the ground. She didn't even look back. That was the moment I decided enough was enough. I replaced the mailbox one final time, but this time, it wasn't going to be just another flimsy post. I started researching reinforced designs, the kind used by rural homeowners who dealt with vandals and pranksters. But I didn't stop there. I wanted something Karen couldn't possibly take down. Something that would stand no matter how many times she tried to ram it. After a week of work in my garage, I had my solution, a mailbox built like a fortress. I set a steel post deep into the ground, anchoring it with concrete that ran nearly 3 feet down. Around the post, I built a shell of solid oak, stained to match the rest of the neighborhood so it wouldn't raise suspicion. Inside the mailbox itself, I lined the walls with 1/4-inch steel plating. To anyone driving by, it looked ordinary, even charming. But underneath, it was indestructible. My bulletproof mailbox was ready. I didn't have to wait long to see if it worked. Just a few nights later, I heard the familiar roar of Karen's SUV coming down the street. She had her high beams on, and I could tell from the angle she wasn't slowing down. She aimed her car directly at the mailbox like it was some sort of game. But this time, the mailbox didn't move. Instead, there was a sickening crunch followed by the screech of brakes. Karen's SUV had slammed into the steel post with such force that her bumper folded like paper. The airbags deployed, the horn blared, and steam poured out from under her hood. I stood on my porch and watched as Karen stumbled out of her car, clutching her wrists and staring in disbelief at the mailbox that refused to fall. For once, she wasn't yelling at me. She wasn't barking orders. She was silent, humiliated, and furious at herself. The neighbors came out one by one, drawn by the noise. They saw the mangled SUV, the indestructible mailbox still standing tall, and the HOA president looking like a fool in front of everyone. Whispers spread quickly. People had grown tired of her antics, her rules, and her constant harassment. Seeing her taken down not by me, but by her own arrogance, was something they wouldn't forget. The police arrived not long after, and the scene only grew more embarrassing for her. They took photos, wrote up a report, and asked me a few questions about the mailbox. I explained that it met all postal regulations, was firmly within my property line, and had been installed after repeated vandalism. Everything was perfectly legal. Karen, on the other hand, had no excuse. She admitted she was distracted and didn't see the post, but no one believed her. The HOA board called an emergency meeting the following week, but this time, the tone was different. Instead of rallying behind Karen, several neighbors voiced their frustration with her behavior. They spoke about her harassment, her bullying, and the way she had turned the neighborhood into her personal kingdom. The mailbox incident had become the breaking point. By the end of the meeting, she was voted out as president. Karen tried to save face, but the damage was already done. Her car insurance skyrocketed after the accident, and the story of a wrecked SUV became a running joke around the neighborhood. Meanwhile, my mailbox stood tall, unscathed, a quiet reminder that some battles can only be won by standing your ground, literally. From that day on, no one touched my mailbox again. In fact, Karen kept her distance altogether. She stopped walking her dog near my yard, stopped glaring at me from her porch, and eventually, I heard she was considering selling her house. She had lost her power, her reputation, and her pride, all because she couldn't resist taking one more shot at me. It's funny how something as small as a mailbox could end up unraveling the reign of a neighborhood tyrant. But that's the thing about Karens and HOAs. They push and push until they meet resistance they can't overcome. In this case, that resistance just happened to be made of steel and concrete. My bulletproof mailbox still stands today, a monument to patience, persistence, and poetic justice. And every time I walk past it to grab the morning paper, I can't help but smile, remembering the night Karen learned that some things just won't break, no matter how hard you try. Do like, subscribe for more.